the habits thing is an interesting one because you've touched on it already. So I've, very simply, positive actions that leads to a healthy mind and body. Research tells us that it takes on average 66 days to form a new habit, to automate it. And that can vary between 18 and 254, depending on the situation. So, I've done a lot of reading on this subject, and the 254 days, it might be the person is in a maybe experienced trauma, they maybe experienced a life-changing moment, or they're at a low ebb, or the habit is so powerful or big for them to change, it takes them a longer time. And you get some people, for example, I've started committing to doing exercise every day. I reckon within 30 days that was a habit for me. You know what I mean? So it's something now. I feel like I can't go a day without exercising, even if it's just for 10 minutes. And my goal, coincidentally enough, was 1 minute a day. That was
wow.
Which we'll come to a bit later on, because I thought, if I set 1 minute, I know I can achieve that. And I've never done less than 10, but I still just have 1 minute as the goal. So so the interesting thing about the habits, to give in a few examples, you mentioned already coaches that maybe don't like this type of work, or it's too time consuming and so on. The habit could be that you make 15 minutes a day to sit down and review your goals or set your goals. You know what I mean? That's where I see a lot of players that they want to improve, but the reality is they don't plan time to actually do the work to make them improve. So they're it's a horrible expression, but they're busy fools. You know, I mean, they're trying so hard. They're like hamsters on a hamster wheel. They're running hard, but they're not going anywhere. So I think the habits could be the habit is you set your alarm clock 15 minutes earlier than your normal alarm every day. So if you know that you need to get up at 7:30, you set your alarm for 7:15. Your habit could be that you put your work or like your exercise clothes beside your bed, so that when you get up at 7:15, you jump straight into them. It's all these little things that
I do stuff like that as well.
That's it. But if you said to a tennis player, for example, right, you need to get up and you need to do your Dynaband routine for 10 minutes every single day, and they go, right, I can do that, and you go, right, no, we need to plan it. When are you going to do it? The easiest time to do it is very early when you first get up. So what time do you typically get up? 7:30. Right. Set your alarm for 7:15. Have your tennis gear and your Dynabands ready next to your bed. Get up, put your gear on, and do your Dynaband. 10 minutes, done. I mean, and if they do 10 minutes a day for a prolonged period of time, it becomes part of the routine. Then that routine can jump to another part of the day. It could be, I know that every day I do my Dynabands. So today I'll do them just before I go on the tennis court at 4:00. I'm at the tournament, I do them in between matches, whatever it is. So that for me is the essence of what I'm trying to get at with this kind of maybe a more layered approach. Or for me, it's a fundamental thing that needs to be bolted on to this typical goal setting thing. The process is just, the specific of what we need to do to get better. So we kind of talked about that. So that's not massively different, but if you attach it to a habit, I think it would be stronger. The play is different in terms of performance, but it's just really finding ways to test how mindful I can be about the process when I'm playing. So the podcast one while I wash cars is quite an easy one for me to resonate with, because I don't like washing my car. But I don't like vacuuming. But if I put a podcast on, I'll do anything. I'll weed the garden. I hate that. So if we can find ways of testing or playing, it could be that we attach the process to the play. And mindful of that as we perform. So
it's almost like I was listening to a podcast that you put out yesterday and talking about negotiating with your kids or with your players, and it's almost like attaching it to a habit. You're negotiating with yourself and going, okay, we'll do it first thing in the morning. That's doable. Now, when else could I do it? And then you start shifting things around.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if your players buy into this, they will create this kind of journey towards belief. You know, that if you do something over and over and over again and you compartmentalize it and put all those bits together, then it leads to them becoming a substantially better player. So even if it's something as simple as getting behind the ball before it bounces, you know what I mean? That needs to be a habit.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, I think my experience of using the word habit with coaches on the level 4 course or with coaches that I work with in Scotland is that something like a light bulb goes off in them a little bit, where they go, that's a much better sell to a player. This needs to become a habit, rather than actually you saying, you must do this. You know, you've got to do it. It's like, this is a healthy habit for you to have, to be behind the ball as early as you can, so you've got more choices, more use of your mechanical chain. To recover, that needs to be a habit. To reposition, to check down the other end of the court to see the effect your shots had on the opponent, that needs to be a habit. Because what happens under pressure, your squid ink comes down, your cortisol gets released, you can't even see what's staring you in the face. You know what I mean? So it needs to become a habit to process what's going on down the other end of the court. So that's really how I package that. And then, of course, the reviewing, in my opinion, should also become habitual. So when do I review? And that can be different for people. So when I played, I was in certain situations, you couldn't come near me for hours. You know what I mean? I was like a hothead. I was really, chip on the shoulder, scrapper by nature, and I would not have been able to process anything that day. It would have had to be the day after. But as I got older and that kind of dissipated and become a bit more wise, then I was able to process or review almost directly after the match. And then, ironically, now that I'm an old man, I can actually review as I'm doing it. So I played a tournament last December, just threw my name in the hat, and I played one of these 4 matches in a day thing, killed me. And I hadn't competed for a few years, and I got to the final, and I was finding myself actually having conversations with myself in the moment, essentially reviewing what was going on. So I was actually like, I need to maybe take a little bit more off the first serve and get a higher first serve percentage in, because my first serve is not going to hurt him anyway. So let's just kick off the point well. I was finding myself, having these conversations about shot selection and whatever, but it was almost in a natural review type way. And it really was almost like a third person speaking to me. And because I was doing that, guess what I wasn't doing, which is what I used to do, was berating myself, having temper tantrums, showing disgust at myself and sometimes the opponent. I'm going back to my teenage years in case anyone's thinking, oh, this is an adult.
No, I definitely know what you mean.
And what actually happens is you turn negative into positive. So you experience something negative, you play around with it in your mind, and you actually regurgitate it to become a positive thing. I'll throw this one in there because for me, this is one of the best pieces of advice or things that I've read or listened to in the last 4 or 5 years from various different neuroscientists. And it's this whole premise that when you have an experience, you file it into your memory and you classify it. So you don't remember anything that was indifferent because it's just boring, it just gets recycled. But you will remember the good stuff and you'll remember the bad stuff. But we definitely know that we remember the bad stuff more than we remember the good stuff. So because of our kind of reptilian brain wanting to survive and so on. So what happens is you have this negative experience, but if you review it and reflect on it, what can happen is you can bring out the silver linings.
Yeah.
And actually the lessons that were learned from that day. Now, for me, this was the thing that blew my mind. When you review and you think about it, you actually create a new memory. The old one didn't exist.
Yeah.
So that's not even, the good thing about it is it's not even a woo-woo kind of principle. It's a neurological fact that you actually create a new memory and the other one doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So if you take a horrible example or principle of someone experiencing a life trauma,
Mm-hmm.
there are some people that can come out of life trauma and create an inspiring, unbelievably motivating persona for themselves, and they pay it forwards and they help others. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So they actually play it back, and I don't mind naming the person. For me, somebody like a Katie Piper
Yeah.
is unbelievable in that
Yeah.
respect, that she's suffered this horrific acid attack.
Yeah.
But, you know, how easy would it have been for her to turn into a victim,
Yeah.
play that out for the rest of her life? But she has actually turned it completely on its head and is
Yeah.
now helping people on a
Yeah.
daily basis.